I know hunting in Pokemon Emerald can be confusing, but it's a lot more doable to get a shiny starter than you might think. In this video, I'll explain how to hunt for full odds shiny Hoenn starters at the beginning of the game in Emerald. Almost everything will also apply to Ruby or Sapphire with a dry internal battery. I'll also showcase a shiny treecko I found in Sapphire, and I'll briefly talk about the 6 shiny Hoenn stars I found in Emerald over the years. For this video, I'll go into a lot of detail because it might help some people to understand the reasoning behind this non-standard hunting approach, but I'll add timestamps. Also, throughout the video, I'll be using some terms interchangeably like soft reset, SR, reset, and soft resetting, SRing, resetting. In case you're unfamiliar, this is pressing a combination of buttons to reload the game. It's faster than powering the console off and on. And whenever I talk about doing a soft reset or a certain number of them, I'm referring to the whole process of advancing past the continue screen, checking if the Pokemon is shiny, and if not, pressing the soft reset buttons. Alright, let's begin. Now you might be wondering, why not just RNG manipulate for a shiny starter? Well, you can do that if you want. I personally prefer the surprise, excitement, and adrenaline rush of traditional shiny hunting. To each their own though, I do see RNGing as a form of shiny hunting. I RNG'd for shinies in Emerald a while ago and for a trainer ID in Platinum last year. So let's say you choose the full odds hunting route. In Emerald or a dry battery Ruby Sapphire, it's not very feasible to get a shiny starter by continually spamming A, sending the starter out, and soft resetting on the same save file. You can do that in Ruby or Sapphire with a working battery though, which I'd recommend hunting in if you have the option. More on this soon. So how does the internal battery status affect the random number generator in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald? When the battery is dry in Ruby Sapphire, the RNG behaves like Emerald's does when it comes to Pokemon found in the game. In Emerald, the RNG acts the same regardless of the status of the battery, working, dry, or not there at all. In all 3 games though, a dry battery freezes clock-based events, like Berry Growth, Lilycove Lottery, Daily Gifts, Phoebus Tile, Swarm Pokemon, Mirage Island, though this actually could be useful times like when shiny hunting for a specific Swarm Pokemon, Phoebus, or why not. And if the battery is working, it can be removed to do this time freeze. Now, how does the RNG behave? Every save file on every Ruby Sapphire with a dry battery, or Emerald, cycles through the same list of frames with one important difference. In this example, a frame can be thought of as a set of data given to a Pokemon. The RNG begins going through frames at a rate of 60 per second when the game is powered on or soft reset, and selects one at a set point. For the starters is when one is selected. Now, the only difference in the frames across the different save files is which ones are shiny frames, ones that will result in a shiny Pokemon. This varies based on the combination of the trainer ID and secret ID. So what this means is that if you spam the A button every soft reset, you'll likely just hit a small range of frames and continually get the same ones, known as RNG clones. If there's not a shiny frame early on and you do quick resets every time, it'd be a waste of time and the shiny will never appear. But there are steps you can take to make the random number generator more random. Given all that, why not just replace the internal battery and hunt in Ruby or Sapphire? Honestly, I'd recommend that. It'll make hunting soft reset targets in there much simpler and easier. And for all the Gen 3 Hoenn games, replacing the battery will lead to clock-based events working, and the dry battery message won't appear every reset. Now, how can you replace the internal battery? There are actually quite a few online sellers who have games available with recently replaced batteries, so you'll be all set and won't have to solder. In terms of how to solder, I'm honestly not very experienced with it, so I'll just link a tutorial in the description. The most ideal approach would be soldering in a battery holder, so the battery can easily be swapped out. But soldering in a tabbed battery is also a great option, considering it should last quite a few years before requiring more soldering. Also, I definitely recommend having proper ventilation and eye protection when soldering. Now, another approach I often use is an electrical tape fix, where I carefully pry out the previous battery, keeping the tabs, put in a new one, and wrap it all in electrical tape. It isn't as reliable as soldering and doesn't look the prettiest, but I find it easier and the batteries almost always stay in place for me and working for years. Now, maybe you're like me and you find it fun to hunt in Emerald due to the challenge, or you don't have Ruby or Sapphire with a working battery. So it's finally time to explain how to hunt the Hoenn stars in Emerald or a dry battery Ruby Sapphire. First, I'll talk about preparing the save file. These settings will carry over into future save files. Right away, I set the text speed to fast, essential when I'm playing any Pokemon game. And then for fun, I choose a text border I like, sometimes one that's similar to the shiny I plan to go for. Now in Ruby and Sapphire, it doesn't matter if animations are on or off, since in those games it only affects the attack animations, and there's no need to battle during the hunt. But in Emerald, having this setting on will add animation when a Pokemon appears or is sent into battle. Recently, I've personally been leaving them on because I find it entertaining to see the Pokemon move, especially when the shiny appears, but it does add some time. Anyway, after getting the settings how I want, I start a new game. Here are the steps I go through on every save file. In terms of the trainer ID, when hunting stars in Emerald, I usually take any one that comes up. If I hunted in a dry battery Ruby Sapphire, I'd do the same. This is because restarting the save file often already adds a decent amount of time to the hunt. Sometimes I do spend a little time going for one I like, but I'm much more flexible with what I take than when I play other games. In those, I like to go for IDs I think look cool. I just like seeing them every time I go to the summary of a Pokemon. Though not necessary, I usually set the clock to the exact time since there's no way to change it later. That way, if I decide to keep the save file that produces the shiny starter, the clock will be accurate. There was one time during my Torchic hunt recently where I set it to the default 10 AM. Really adventurous, I know. Then I progress to the starters and save the game. I usually save in front of the bag, but of course it doesn't matter which side. Then I choose a starter, send it into battle to check if it's shiny, and if not, soft reset. It probably won't be shiny on the first one, but I have found a random shiny starter before. More on this later in the video when I talk about my shiny stars in Emerald. Now the two keys to hunting the starters in Emerald or Ruby Sapphire with the dry battery are varying the timing of the soft resets and restarting the save file often, every approximately 35 to 75 soft resets. Recently I was restarting my Emerald save file approximately every 50 soft resets. I feel like that gives each one a solid number of chances to produce a shiny. Restarting the save file will lead to a different distribution of shiny frames, and eventually you'll find one that has a shiny frame early enough that can yield a shiny starter. Now the other key, varying the timing of the soft resets so you're hitting a wider range of frames, potentially one of them being a shiny frame. To do this in Emerald, I like to use the location panel. There are other options that I'll talk about soon, which I'd recommend for a dry battery Ruby Sapphire. So I start with the one after saving in front of the bag. The timing for this one doesn't matter. Here are the different sets of resets I go for in each Emerald save file, with a focus on where the location panel is. For the first set of 7 soft resets, I spam the E button the whole time. For the 42 after that, I spam A until I pass the continue screen, then wait for the location panel to be in a certain location, then I continue spamming A. So for the next 7 resets, I wait until a very small amount of the location panel appears. Sometimes after I hit A, it then briefly fully appears without scrolling. And then for the next set of 7 soft resets, I wait until it's about 1/4, 1/3 of the way down. Then 7 where it's approximately half or 3/4 of the way down. Then I do 7 where I wait until the location panel is nearly completely down. Then 7 where I wait until it loads completely. And for these last 7, I wait until it scrolls down completely, and then I wait approximately another second. So including the initial soft reset, this makes a total of 50. Now in Ruby Sapphire, the location panel is smaller and appears while the overworld is still loading. So if you're hunting in there with the dry battery, I'd recommend a different timing method. That could be other visual cues like the progression of the intro or the selection hand. I'm a visual person, but there's also the option of auditory cues, like the music during the intense Professor Birch vs. Dog moment. It's the same idea as using the location panel for the timing in Emerald though. Regardless of which option you go with, you'll of course start with the one where you progress to the stars and save in front. Like with Emerald, you'll need to send the star into battle to check if it's shiny. There was totally never a time where I thought you could check the shininess of a starter in Fire Red Leaf Green by looking at the selection photo. And I definitely didn't do hundreds of resets like that. Anyway, going back to the Hoenn starters, if you send them into battle and they're not shiny, just soft reset. Now to time the resets, you could use visual cues from the intro like the location of the water droplet. The different sets of soft resets might look something like this. So you could start with the 7 where you spam the A button. Then for the next 42, you'd wait until the intro is at a certain point, then spam A the rest of the reset. For example, maybe 7 resets where the water droplet is about 1/4 of the way down the leaf, 7 where it's approximately halfway down it, 7 soft resets where it's approximately 3/4 of the way down it, 7 where it reaches the edge of the leaf, 7 resets waiting until it hits the water, and 7 waiting until more droplets fall. It's a similar concept if you want to use the selection hand or the limited time music to time the resets. For those you would spam the A button, wait for the cue, and then continue spamming A. Now you don't have to follow any of these strategies exactly, the priorities are just varying the timing of the soft resets and restarting the save file often. If I had to give a minimum number of resets to do on each save file, I'd say maybe 35, and if I had to give a maximum, I'd say like 100. At a certain point, you'd be waiting so long each soft reset to get a new timing further out, that it would just make sense to restart the game so you can do quicker resets. Also, you can choose timings for the soft resets that are closer together or further apart than the ones I mentioned. And in terms of the number of resets with each intended timing, you can do more or less than 7, but I wouldn't recommend more than, say, 10, since the more resets you do with each timing, the higher the chance of RNG clones. Now, there are plenty of times when I don't get the timing I'm going for, like when I'm multitasking. When that happens, I just make a mental note to do one less reset with the timing I unintentionally had. So ideally, you'll get a shiny starter without any uncatchable shinies. I'll send energy for that to happen to anyone who watches this video. But what if someone, maybe your friend, finds an uncatchable shiny zigzagoon? Or several. That happened to me in early June 2011 when I was SRing for a shiny Torchic. And more recently in July 2023 when going for Mudkip. Both times I did end up getting my shiny starter, but for me personally they didn't quite seem like full odds shinies. since I knew I had an early shiny frame. So I knew I was pretty much guaranteed a shiny starter soon if I adjusted the timing a little bit. I did find 4 shiny Hoenn stars in Emerald without finding a Zigzagoon though. A Mudkip, 2 treecko, and a Torchic. I found my Torchic live. I'm saving that reaction and the story behind that for another video. Even all these years later, I'm still amazed I found a random shiny treecko. It was such a cool experience. I never thought I'd find a random shiny starter. I didn't even plan to reset for a shiny one on that save file. Now in my opinion, for the Emerald starter hunt, it makes sense to either go all in with full odds hunting or RNG manipulation. Not some full odds hunting followed by inefficient RNG manipulation, which is what my YouTube short conveyed. That was a mistake on my part. So if you're hunting for a full odds shiny starter and you find a shiny Zigzagoon, or Poochyena in Ruby Sapphire with a dry battery, I recommend just restarting the game and continuing the process on other save files. The way I see it, it's similar to finding a Poochyena when hunting the stars in Ruby Sapphire with a working battery. It's no fun, but it's part of the hunt. At least the resets go by pretty quickly, but of course restarting often does add time to the hunt. Eventually you'll win the coin flip though and get your shiny starter. Now it's time to showcase the shiny treecko I found in October 2023. I consider this a reclaim of my first one, which was actually my first ever completed 1 in A192 hunt. And it's awesome I also found this one in Sapphire. This was literally the 8th shiny treecko I found, 7 of those being 1 in A192. I'm saving the story of what happened to my previous shiny collection for another time. I'm super grateful to reclaim this shiny. Even though I found uncatchable shinies this time, it didn't take that many resets. Also, I stressed over how to total up this hunt, and eventually decided that since I alternated which starter I chose at times, that I would just combine the total, since it was all part of my journey to get a full odds shiny Hoenn starter in Gen 3. Alright, I hope you found this video helpful. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Wishing you the best of luck.